Hey guys, it is Jess and welcome back to the channel. So today I am doing another speed build. This one I actually really like. I did something totally different. I was watching some speed builds and just watching like some people build some things that like are a little bit different, like not so like standard, I suppose you could say. I'm gonna link a video into the description below. This is like basically the video where I got all of my inspiration from, and yeah, it's really cool. I really like it. I called it Bay Window Breeze because it has like these bay windows and they're really cool, and they actually came with like laundry day, I think. And I like never build with the higher wall thing. Like I always build with like the lowest wall height. So I didn't even know that we had all of these amazing windows because I just like never look in the higher wall height part. Oh, that was a bit of a tongue twister. So anyway, I had a look in there and then I noticed that there were all these really cool windows and I really wanted to use some, so I decided to do that for this build. So yeah, I've spoken about windows for long enough. Let's get into a story that I actually have. This actually happened a while ago, but I just haven't, I don't know, like I haven't really said the story yet because I don't even know why. I just haven't really gotten around to telling it. But I think it's a pretty funny story. It is a tiny little bit gory or like yucky. So I don't know, like I'll kind of like try and keep it as not gory as possible. It just involves like a medical procedure, I guess. But look, I think I'm making it worse than what it really is. So let me just get onto the story and stop rambling. Okay, so my husband is a mechanic and he's a very clumsy mechanic. So I had an appointment and I noticed that my phone was ringing a lot, and I looked at it was my husband and he was like, "Oh, can you call me back? It's a little bit of an emergency." And I was like, "Oh my God." Now he's very clumsy and I was just thinking to myself, what have you done this time? Because, you know, chances were it was going to be some sort of injury. So I call him and I'm like, "Hey, are you okay?" I didn't even ask what's wrong. I'm like, "Are you okay?" And he's like, "Look, I'm okay, I'm fine. I've just cut my hand at work and I've like cut it really bad and I've got to go to the hospital." And I was like, "Oh my God, okay, no worries." And then basically we in Australia have, I think it's called universal healthcare, but basically the healthcare is free. So we can just like go into the emergency room. You don't have to have any like insurance or anything. Like you just go in and they will help you. Like you could be a homeless person and you could go into emergency and they will help you. You know, do you know what I mean? Like you could be a homeless person, you could be hit by a car, the ambulance will come, pick you up, and then they will take you to the hospital and save your life, pretty much. Except actually in saying that, you have to pay for the ambulance if you don't have ambulance cover. But I'm pretty sure that they're not gonna like deny you the ambulance trip, if that makes sense. But anyway, this isn't the point of the story. So basically, we have this thing called the walk-in center, and it's supposed to be if you have a minor injury, instead of going to the emergency room for like a minor injury, you're supposed to go to the walk-in center. So first of all, I was like to my husband, well, go to the walk-in center because if you've just cut your hand, like it's not an emergency. I don't think you need to go to like ER for that because it's a hand cut. And he was saying that he had actually already been to the walk-in center and they said he had to go to emergency. And I was like, oh, okay, this cut must be pretty bad then if he's been sent to emergency. So what he was saying is that there's only nurses at this walk-in center, and absolutely no shade or anything to nurses. But because there's no like doctor or GP there, like the nurses can only do so much. So when they looked at his cut, it was in the webbing between his thumb and like pointer finger. And they thought that he'd like cut a tendon, and because he is a mechanic, his hand was really dirty, so he'd gotten like grease in his cut. They thought he cut the tendon, and because of like the positioning of it, the nurse couldn't stitch it up, like a doctor had to do it. So we had to go to the emergency room, and it was just like kind of embarrassing having to show up and be like, "Yeah, just cut my hand." So anyway, we went to the emergency room and there was this other person there, and he had his thumb all bandaged up. And he was sort of like, he was telling the doctor, but kind of telling everyone at the same time. And he was like, oh, they sent me here from the walk-in center. I got bit by a chicken. And we're like, what? So apparently he's like, I just put my hand out and then next minute this chicken bit my thumb. So he was also like sent from the walk-in center because the chicken bit his thumb. And I just thought that was really like, what a random reason to have to go to the hospital. But anyway, so we had to wait for like a few hours at emergency, and then the doctor came around and he had a bandage on it, so he took the bandage off and he had to give him before he could do anything, he had to give him like a needle in it for was it general or local? I think it's local anesthetic. Like, so obviously he could stitch it up and clean it without him feeling it. So I'm not usually squeamish. I am kind of, I know it sounds weird, but I kind of like gory things. They don't bother me. You know, like if someone falls over or something, I'm like, oh yeah, let me have a look at the cut. Like, I'm weird like that. So obviously I'm like kind of into this cut on his hand and I'm taking photos of it and I'm like, oh my god, that's so wicked. Look how like bad it is. Oh my god. And my husband's like, oh my god, like just really wishing I would stop taking photos of him. And then the doctor's like, yep, okay, I've got to put the needle in. Now, I don't like needles. So for some reason, I watched the needle go in. Now, I actually hadn't eaten yet because I had this appointment sort of first thing in the morning and I was planning on having breakfast when I got back, but then obviously I didn't get to have breakfast. So I'm like sitting there, I hadn't eaten all morning and I am watching this needle. And as I said, I hate needles. And it looked really painful and I was kind of cringing. And I started to feel a little bit nauseous and I was like, oh, I'm probably just hungry. Like, I didn't really think much of it because, I mean, I hadn't eaten all day. So, you know, when you like feel a bit sick from being hungry. So I thought that it was just that. Anyway, so the needle all goes in and everything. And then the doctor, this is where it gets just like a little bit gory, but I'm going to try and keep it not too bad. The doctor had to kind of like clean it out and like pull skin back and play around with it. So he was doing that and I was watching. And then all of a sudden, like just out of nowhere, I was like, I think I'm going to be sick. No, I'm not going to be sick. I'm okay. Oh, wait, I'm really, really hot, but I'm sweating and I'm also cold, but now I'm hot again. And I started getting like really hot and cold and sweaty. It was really weird. And I was like, oh, I think I'm going to faint. And like, it just happened so quick. Like 1 minute I was feeling just like a tiny bit nauseous. The next minute, my ears were ringing. I was hot. Then I was cold. Then I was sweaty. And then my vision started to go, like my vision started blacking out. And I was like, oh no. And I didn't want to make a scene. Like, I didn't want to be that person who, and like, obviously, that, when I say I didn't want to be that person, like, that person doesn't mean to do it at the time, but I just didn't want to, you know, like, here are people in emergency who are, like, sick, here is my husband who's, like, got this injury, and here I am perfectly fine about to faint because I looked at a needle when I really, really shouldn't have, so I was trying to, like, hide it. So I just, like, all of a sudden, I must have gone, like, really pale and quiet. And I just put, like, my head in my hands. And the doctor had to go off to get something. And my husband just, like, knew straight away. He was like, what's wrong? And I'm like, nothing, I'm fine. And he's like, you're gonna faint. You're gonna faint. And I'm like, no, I'm not gonna faint. I'll be fine. Like, the whole time, I just have, like, my head in my hands, my eyes closed, and, like, trying to take these big, deep breaths. And he was like, I told you not to look at it. I knew that this would happen. You think that you can look, but you can't. You can't look. And I was like, oh, and it was horrible. Fortunately, like, I didn't, like, fully faint or anything. I just kind of started, like, my vision started blacking out and stuff. And I did end up recovering. Then my husband got all stitched up and, like, everything was fine. But it was just like, come on, Jess. Like, what are you doing, girl? Like, oh, it was really embarrassing, and I think that the doctor knew as well, but he didn't really say anything because, yeah, I don't know, because I went so quiet all of a sudden, and then I couldn't watch any of it. Like, I just had to, like, look down, and it just, oh, it's horrible. And the weird thing is, like, I don't really faint. I'm not the kind of person who faints a lot. this is like the third time that I've ever nearly fainted. So the first time I ever fainted, I didn't actually realize what had happened. Actually, this is, again, my husband was getting like a mole removed from his back. And for some reason, I decided to watch that. And I watched the needle. And then all of a sudden, I felt like I was going to be sick. And my ears started ringing and my vision started blacking out. And I was like, whoa, what's happening? And I didn't realize that was like what happens when you faint, because it's the first time it had ever happened to me. So I just kind of, I don't know what I thought. I just moved on and never really thought about it again. And then I had to get a procedure done to remove ingrown toenails, and they have to put a needle into your foot that time, like actually put a needle into your toe. And like it hurt so much. And you had to get 4 needles, 2 in each toe. And like all of a sudden I just went dead pale. Like I could feel, I mean, I obviously couldn't see myself, but I could feel all the color leave my face. And same thing, like the whole, like my vision was blacking out. I thought I was going to be sick. I was really hot and cold and sweaty, and I didn't want to say anything to the person doing the procedure because I was really worried that he'd be like, oh, if you're not feeling well, I can't keep doing it. So I had to like pretend that it wasn't happening. So they're like the only 3 times that I've ever actually fainted. But my mum faints a lot. Like she is very squeamish and everything. So I felt really stupid because I always I always tease my mum for fainting at things. And then here I am like pretty much doing the same thing that she does. And I had to go home and be like, Mum, I'm sorry for all the times I teased you. It's horrible when it happens. Oh, I'm so sorry. And she like forgave me and everything. But yeah, so it was all good in the end, but it was just a bit of a hassle and a nightmare at the time. But yeah, like my husband is very clumsy, as I said before. And when we got home from the hospital, he had his whole hand bandaged up and he could not move his thumb. Like he wasn't allowed to move it because of where the cut was. And as I said, he is a mechanic, so it's a very dirty job. Oh, excuse me. And you get like oil and grease everywhere. So he couldn't obviously clean his hands because, well, you know, one had a cut on it, and then he couldn't get like the cut wet or anything like that. So he's like, okay, you're gonna have to help me like wash my hands. And I was like, yes, because I really wanted to get like my scrubs and stuff onto his hands. So I like cleaned his hand for him. It looked so good. And then he was like, can you just help me wash my hair? And all this sounds like so ridiculous, like just for a cut on the hand. But it was like, because he is a mechanic, obviously, like he doesn't want to just kind of have like his hair only washed a little bit. And my mum has a hair salon, like she's a hairdresser and she has a salon at home. So we just went over to my mum's house and I washed his hair for him, like in the hair washing basin. And I was washing his hair and I noticed he had like a scab on his head, and I was like, what is that on your head? And he's like, oh yeah, I hit my head on a car boot last week. It bled really bad. There was like a lump there for ages, but it's fine now. And I was like, oh my God. So literally, as I am like washing your hair because you have just been to the hospital because you cut your hand, you have like this another cut on your head. Like he's incredibly clumsy, and he cut his left hand, and then on his right hand he had like a band-aid from the day before when he cut his hand. So he's like a real worry. I'm not gonna lie. So if he ever like calls me from work, I'm like, what have you done? And I mean, he's pretty clumsy actually. I'm just gonna like tell you guys the things that he's done at work. So cut his hand. He cut his thumb really bad once as well, and he nearly had to go to get that stitched up as well, but he didn't end up going because this is like such a boy thing to do, I think. He just got a wet rag, I don't even know if it was clean, and wrapped it around his thumb, and it was like, yeah, it stopped bleeding, so I just kept on going. It was fine. So I was like, yep, okay. Just cut his thumb, cut his hand. He had to go to the hospital because I don't know how he did it, but he accidentally flicked a pair of pliers, pointy-ended pliers, into his eye. Fortunately, he closed his eye, so all the damage was like kind of bruising. He didn't actually get it, like it didn't hit his eyeball, it hit like his eyelid, but he had to go to the hospital, and because he got stuff in his eye still, he had to get it flushed out and all that kind of stuff. So that was a pretty bad one. He dropped something on his tooth, and fortunately he didn't like chip it or anything, but he dropped like some sort of pliers or something on his tooth, but they had like rubber on the handles, and fortunately the rubber side hit his tooth. His head, multiple, like he'll come home, I don't know, like a few times each year and be like, oh my god, feel this lump on my head, I hit my head on this, and I'm like, okay. So I feel like that's enough. And bear in mind, like, how long has he been working for? Ooh, maybe 7 years. I think that is like a lot of injuries, like 2 hospital visits from being a mechanic. So yeah. Oh, also, he used to play soccer. Do you guys call it football? Soccer, football, whatever. He used to play that, and he broke his arm. He I don't know what he did. I wasn't at that particular game, so I'm not sure what he did, but he like tripped over and broke his arm. And exactly 1 year later, on the same field against the same team, I went and watched that game, and we were just making like a casual joke on the way to the game. I was like, oh, it's your 1 year anniversary of breaking your arm, same team, same field. And he's like, yeah, ha ha ha. And believe it or not, he tripped over, he got tackled by one of his teammates, broke his arm again, exactly 1 year later, same field, same team. Like, I could not believe it. And he broke his arm really bad. He had to have an operation on it and everything, because he like completely broke both the bones in his arm, and there was like completely like broke them away from each other. So yeah, I think I've painted a pretty good picture of how bloody clumsy he is. And personally, I'm not that clumsy. Like, I'm trying to think. I don't know. I'm not clumsy, but weird things happen to me, if that makes sense. Like, I wouldn't say I'm a super clumsy person. I don't tend to knock things over. I don't trip over a lot. In saying this, I can guarantee you tomorrow I'm gonna fall over now because I said that I'm not clumsy. But yeah, like, I'm really not particularly clumsy, but weird stuff happens. Like, I even told this story on a speed build. I spilled a cappuccino on myself, and like all the warm milk spoiled on my shirt. Oh, actually I was wearing a dress. Spoiled on my dress and smelled really bad, and I had to like go home from work and change. So like just weird things like that happen to me, but I'm not particularly, like clumsy. So are you guys clumsy? Let me know. Like, let me know what the stupidest, clumsiest thing you've ever done is. Actually, let me think. What's the clumsiest thing that I've ever done? Actually, this is like a bad one. The worst and clumsiest thing I've ever done, and I still maintain that this is not my fault. So I was at a ball. My gym, every year they do this ball. It's really fun. Actually, it's called the Fernwood Ball, and you get like dressed up. It's at the end of this 12-week challenge that they do, and they get dressed up and they give out awards, and anyone can go, and it's really fun. So I was sitting at a table, and I had my elbow on the table and my back facing this girl, and I don't know who it was. People had been drinking, so I'm assuming that someone wasn't thinking straight, and they put a red drink behind my arm that was on the table, but because I wasn't facing that direction, I didn't realize that the drink was there. So someone had just like put this drink there while I was talking, and then I went to turn around and talk to someone, like the girl that was behind me, and as I turned, obviously I knocked this drink over, and I spilled this drink all over this girl's satin dress. And I mean, for me personally, that wouldn't have been a big deal. Like, I don't know, that's just me, and I'm pretty kind of like, in some ways, like too relaxed. I'm very like, oh yeah, whatever, it happens. But I think that this was her, like, this dress meant a lot to her, and she cried like hysterically. It was horrible. I felt so bad. She just like sat there and looked at her dress and then just bawled her eyes out. And I was like, oh my God. And I didn't know what to do because I was like, I am so sorry. And she was like crying too much to really pay attention. And then her sister came over and she picked like kind of like helped her up out of the seat and they ran to the bathroom. And I was like, oh my God, like what do I do? Do I follow? It was so embarrassing and awkward. And I ended up just, because you know what I mean? Like when you're in that state, sometimes you don't want people following you. So I like kind of gave them a few minutes. Then I went to the bathroom and I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, is there anything that I can do? And the girl's like, no, look, it's okay. Like the girl's sister, sorry. The girl was still crying and couldn't talk. Ooh, I'm not laughing because I think it's funny. I'm laughing because still to this day, like I feel so bad about it that I'm a nervous laugher. So I don't think it's funny at all. I still feel horrible about it. But the girl's sister, she was like, no, it's okay. Like, it wasn't really your fault. You know, you didn't know that the drink was there. It happens. She just really loved that dress. It's okay. And, like, I offered to, like, pay for her to dry clean it and all that kind of stuff. And, like, she didn't accept for me to dry clean it or anything. And I think she eventually got the stain out. But I think she had to dry clean the dress, like, twice or something. And the worst part was I had to see her at the gym, like, every day. And like every time I see her to this day, I just like, I cringe and I'm like, oh my God, I ruined your dress. Like, I don't think I'll ever forgive myself for that. And it wasn't even my fault. So that's my terrible, embarrassing, like clumsy story. So if you guys have one like that, let me know in the comments below. And yeah, thank you so much for watching. And I hope to catch you all in another video. And I need to stop doing that annoying I'll click instead. Like, thanks for watching, guys. See y'all later. Yep. Still haven't got that outro mastered. Okay, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Bye.